So, welcome back to Third Age Reforged and to another battle replay and to another custom scenario that was given to me, I believe by WK, and indeed that is accurate, but I think it was made primarily by Froggy, but perhaps with a bit of peripheral support from WK, because I think some of the new assets on this map, which I'm sure you can already see, were made by him. So this is intended to be a bit of a follow-up to the Siege of Kruk-Mahur, which was a battle that I did a fair while ago by the time this one comes out, to be honest with you. I'm sure that you'll remember it though if you did watch it, because it was the Harad siege where there was that Aztec style architecture from Vanilla Medieval 2 which made up large tracts of the settlement. And this one is called the MUMAKIL graveyard for the obvious fact that there are the carcasses of these poor majestic beasts that litter the canyons that we're going to be seeing. So this is a siege, but it is a siege without a settlement in many ways. More of the canyons and the choke points around that area will provide the defensive positions that the defenders will need to try and hold onto these areas. And there are plenty of narrow areas and good chokes that they can hold onto, but also open areas should they feel the need to engage in such warfare, which to be fair the Harad may need to, because there are plenty of mounted units that they have at their disposal as well. Poor MUMAKIL. But it's a sad but perhaps not all too unfamiliar sight in this version of the game, with the MUMAKIL being what they are in the current patch, in that they can be effective, but it's incredibly difficult to make full use of them. Speaking of which, we will get on to the Harad armies in just a moment. We shall start outside of the graveyard in the canyons here of Far Harad, and start instead with the attackers, the armies of Sauron trying to bring the Southrons to heel, starting off with Froggy himself, who is going to be playing as a Mordor army. He's got some Morannon halberdiers, which, to be honest with you, halberds are not all that useful against Harad. It's nice to have them because of their phalanx formation, but they're also, the armor piercing is not as useful against a faction which is as focused on attack and aggression as Harad, and the armor values of course are not all that high. Morannon infantry are very numerous, and that is one way in which Mordor can potentially try and overwhelm Harad, especially considering that that low armor can really be a problem when it comes to death by 1,000 cuts. Even against low tier infantry, Harad can still take damage over time, at least certainly with their more basic units. But the Southrons themselves are also a fairly numerous army, so Mordor can't just rely here on their ability to overwhelm the enemy, because the Southrons could be able to withstand that better than most perhaps, even if it is a 5v3, so that does warp things somewhat. Morannon halberds, Morannon infantry, so all of the Morannon units making up the first line of Froggy's army. Another unit of Morannon halberds there. We also have the Sauron's Will, again armor piercing focus, so perhaps not as terrifying to the Harad as they could be against other human kingdoms such as those from the west, or even the other eastern kingdoms. Both Khand and Rhun both rely on armor, certainly much more than the Southrons do. But they still have a good amount of base damage, and they're less likely to run away than the rabble of orcs that are usually around them. More Morannon halberdiers, Morannon archers. Something else which, armor piercing may not be all that effective against Harad, but even basic archers can be a real nightmare for them to deal with, because they tend to be a little bit more on the fragile side. Even some of their stronger units are. So that means when you're on the defense like this, even if you're dug in, the attackers can try and wear you down over time. And even with basic units of orcish archers such as the Morannons here, it can be a bit of a tricky thing to shrug off that kind of damage, and you often need to respond in ways that maybe you wouldn't want to. You might need to try and shuffle your pack a little bit to make that work for you. Something else which is a really useful tool to have on the attack for Mordor is the Orc Javelins. They're so cheap that you don't want to be wasting your ammunition on them if you can help it, but if you leave them to do as they will, even cheap javelins like this, the damage can really add up on them over time. So it is a bit of a conundrum that Harad will have to face. One way that you can deal with them, of course, is if they get a little bit too greedy, you can catch them out in melee either with a swift cavalry charge or by just pushing your infantry further forward. So it's not completely without reprisal, this, but still, if Mordor keep their units covered, they should be just fine. Here we have some Minas Morgul chosen. They won't enjoy being up against all of the armor piercing that Harad have to offer, but they are still a very good and useful defensive anchor that Mordor can use to make sure that their lines don't fall apart too quickly. And ultimately, Harad are not all armor-piercing units at the end of the day, so if they do find themselves caught up against stuff like Muhard warriors, or stuff like the Dismounted Serpent Guard, the Minas Morgul chosen will do just fine and act as the bulwark they're meant to be. Just got to try and avoid those trollmen. Blackguard of Barad-dûr are another really useful unit that Mordor have, because they can bulldoze through front lines. I don't know how Harad are going to set up here, to be honest with you. They've got a lot of cavalry. The canyons are quite winding as well. So it won't be quite as simple as just there is one big defensive position, and when it's weak enough the Blackguard of Barad-dûr can move forward and push through it. Timing is going to be everything with the Great Shield Infantry as per usual, and it's not a simple equation when the battle is laid out like this. Olag High, they need to be really careful of the really damaging Harad infantry, as we've already said, but once again, if they can get in and amongst the more fragile Harad elements, especially stuff like the Beast Tamers perhaps, or the South Run Pikes, they'll do a lot of damage very, very quickly. Temple Guard, the armour-piercing missiles, will be useful against stuff like the Champions of Nathrat still, because, again, armour-piercing archers like this really are high-tier unit hunters. You don't want to be using them on low-tier units if you can help it. Yes, even the Harad bodyguard units are not as heavily armoured as their peers, but the multiple HP and all of that stuff still means that high damage AP arrows are still going to be really, really useful. And the Uruk captains, their party piece is as well that they are AP, which isn't as useful against Harad. I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but it is true. Even so, they're still just a useful sword and board bodyguard unit, which is reasonably tanky, which may be all they need to be in a situation like this. Another faction which lays the AP on thick, which I won't keep mentioning that it's not as useful against Harad as it could otherwise be. What on earth is going on over there? Well, more on that in just a moment, I think. But we have Rhun. He's got some Eastron Guard here under the command of Mevon. We've got some Loke Scion Rim, which are a very bulky unit of spears, not too dissimilar to the Minas Morgul's Chosen, to be honest. In the past, I think I'd rate the Scion Rim more highly. They tend to do the business for Rhun a little bit more regularly than the Minas Morgul's Chosen do. But perhaps that's because Rhun can't rely on numbers quite so much as Mordor can, although on this occasion there are plenty of these fully upgraded Eastron clansmen. The gold armour looking resplendent as always. Eastron warriors, they don't have the option for full armour upgrade like that, but they are pretty good in melee. They do need to be careful of all the Harad skirmishers that are going to be waiting for them in the canyons though. Nar Rim in behind with their flaming shot. Flag Rim, they'll have to make do as just being quite effective line infantry on this occasion, again because of that AP. Gamp Rim for the phalanx, very similar to the Moran halberds we've already seen. The crossbows will be useful for that stopping power if they get into position. Siege battles can be decided by crossbows, whether attackers or defenders, if they can get into really, really good positions. The problem that Eastron crossbows have relative to others is even with the armour upgrades, they're pretty fragile both at range and in melee, so that is something that potentially Harad can use to their advantage. And another unit of Scion Rim at the back. Now we shall move on to Cannon Fodder. Nice to see Cannon Fodder once again. I noticed that the comments were happy to see him again, and he does show up from time to time. Classic name, of course. Moranon Archers are here. We've got some more Moranon Archers, and I believe this is all that there is to this 5th army, because we do, of course, have the Oathbreakers, which have actually been different over the course of Reforged's development, but they've always been ridiculously overpowered, of course, but they are only a single unit, and they are not indestructible. They aren't, like, they don't have 164 HP, which is the, I think, mathematical limit that Medieval 2 can work to. I think there have been versions of Oathbreakers in the past which that has been the case for, not in Reforged, but in other submods. The Oathbreakers, I believe they have like 10 or 12 hit points, which is not dissimilar to the Nazgul. That might be accurate. I honestly don't know. The only thing I know is that there is a reason why Cannon Fodder will only have access to 2 units of archers and 1 unit of infantry, because the Oathbreakers are really, really strong. But it does also mean that there are less numbers for the attackers here, and Harad can potentially try and bottle those Oathbreakers up and use stuff like Demons of the Desert on them to burn through their hit points, which would work. Then we have an... oh no, Cannon Fodder's army is over here, so is it a 4v3? Possibly. Well, regardless of that, Cannon Fodder has got the rest of his army over here. Moranon halberds, Blackguard of Barad-dûr, Olag High, very similar to the other Mordor army by the looks of things, other than the Green Menace that we've already seen. More Moranon infantry, more Minas Morgul Chosen. There's already dead MUMAKILs out here. And Orc Javelins as well. Already talked about the Olag High naturally. And then finally over here we have, I guess, the final attacking army. And it is going to be Umbar under the command of Lango, a very high quality army under normal circumstances. For the same reasons as Gondor, really, they are a rather intriguing matchup for Harad, in the sense that both sides have got something that the other is very weak against. Narin Aru Sentinels here in numbers on the front line, Ardenaim Shield Guard, Belagaya Pikemen, so that's solid Umbar infantry already showing up. Even the Belagaya units, especially with regards to their pikes, can be a real nuisance to deal with. Balaketh Marksman with the armour upgrade, really not going to be easy for Harad to skirmish with a force like Umbar if it's properly supplied with its archers, and it does look as though Lango does have that luxury on this occasion. Looks as though this is the most elite attacking army if you don't count the Oathbreakers, to be honest. Plenty of Alcarondas Legion also in the mix. And that's something else which Harad can't really easily deal with. The Dismounted Serpent Guard are all well and good, but they're not the all-round powerhouse that the Alcarondas Legion are. Naruna Roar Guard are even more of a problem at range than the Balaketh Marksmen. Very tough to wear down indeed. Some Corsair Blackguards are very dangerous with those javelins. Corsair Infantry, not quite as effective of course, but even then with the armour upgrade might not be the sort of thing that Harad appreciates seeing. Balagai Archers, the full gamut of Umbar Archers are on the field today, and most of them have got the upgrades should they have access to such things. Another unit of Naruna Sentinels, Balagai Archers and Balaketh Marksmen, so an archer heavy, elite infantry focused Umbar army. Pretty much everything Harad despises is locked up in this army, to be honest with you. So we shall see if they are able to withstand such a thing. We shall start off with WK's army. He is going to make up the first defence. He's going to be here in the hilly section in the first part of the canyons. Hashari Shadows are something which can do a ton of damage, of course. They will be one of the very few units to retain the body piercing when the new patch does eventually arrive, along with the Grey Company and maybe one other that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But yes, they will have access to those body piercing arrows then, and they do now, which could be the sort of thing to do a lot of damage very, very quickly. Muhad Beast Hunters, Harad well known for their prowess with their javelins, which they may very well need given the level of opposition that is before them today. A couple of units of Muhad Berserkers, no, actually one unit of Muhad Berserkers, more javelins. AP of course on display for Harad, which will be useful against all of the attackers. Maybe slightly less so against Rhun, but certainly against Umbar and Mordor. Muhad Warriors are numerous, but not all that impressive. Very similar in many ways to the Moranon Infantry. Muhad Berserkers once again there with their big bone clubs. Beast Tamers, the Phalanx will be handy, of course, if they can avoid all of those Olag High that are on the field. More Beast Tamers there. And then down here in this gap we have more Muhad Warriors, more Muhad Berserkers, and more Berserkers. So WK playing as the tribal section of the Haradrim force. Speaking of which, here are the MUMAKIL, stood amongst their dead brothers and sisters. We shall see how well they can do. I mean, they could break up the Oathbreakers, who are, to be fair, right in front of them. If you can keep the Oathbreakers knocked over, then they can't really do anything in response, but the MUMAKIL will be taking damage all the while, and I doubt their ability to withstand punishment over a really long period of time. We also see over here possibly the one example of a non-tribal unit from WK, the Serpent's Fangs. Poison arrows, to be fair, as the battle wears on in this 4v3, could prove to be really, really useful, especially against the more ill-disciplined Orcs and Easterlings. Black Numenorians will be a little bit more difficult to take on. Then over here, starting to see more elements of the more deeply entrenched portions of the canyon. Trollmen of Harad, 2 units of them. Unit of Champions of Nafrat, which really dangerous, and another unit of Muhad Warriors, and I think that's it. No, Demons of the Desert. How could I forget? How could I overlook such a terrifying force? Then, skipping over here, we have Tundra's Fox. Looks like he's got a more cavalry-centric army. He's got the Black Serpents, very fast, very dangerous off the charge, but they're not knights, so you do want to keep them moving if it's at all possible. War Beasts of Harad, kind of similar. Again, the charge is the thing that's the most striking thing about this particular unit. You don't get to see them all that often, so I'm interested to see if they can be as effective as they can be in this battle. Southron Raiders then just in behind, looks like quite a low quality army to be honest. Haradrim Spears, more Southron Pikes, some upgraded dismounted Serpent Guard to anchor things with a bit of quality, 4 units of them, but for the most part it is Southrons and standard Haradrim Spears here. But this is a reinforcing army and it is a fairly numerous one at that, so to see all of these numbers appear on the horizon might be quite scary for the red team today. In fact, I think this is 2 armies over here, so it may very well be a 4v4. Wojciech and Eclipse, yes, that is accurate. So it's a 4v4, so suddenly the appearance of the Oathbreakers makes a little bit more sense. Serpent's Fangs are here, another unit of Demons of the Desert, one of the units which could be really decisive for Harad. Beast Tamers, Trollmen, Muhad Berserkers, a couple of units of Camels are here as well, the Beast Masters. Can they be used to their fullest effect? Javelins will need to in some respect, at least for Harad. A couple of units of Beast Hunters as well, Muhad Warriors, loads of Muhad Warriors, Berserkers and Beast Tamers on the field today, so very much a more tribal look to these defending armies. Wojciech's army is again made up of Muhad Warriors. I do love the crimson of Harad when you look at all of the shields here that have been painted for the Muhad Warriors. It does look very striking, very vibrant. More Beast Hunters, loads of Javelins here, so It's going to be impossible really for the attackers to avoid walking into the Haradrim javelins at some point. It's just a case of whether those javelins can do the business in the time that they have. Trollmen of Harad, Muhad Berserkers, going to be seeing very much the same sort of thing here. Serpent's Fangs, Beast Tamers with the MUMAKIL corpses stretching off into the distance there. Trollmen of Harad, and more Beast Tamers, and yeah, very tribal look to this army back here. So I'm sure that the intricacies of the map will become apparent as we move along, because it does look as though there's plenty of little hidden spots that the defenders could make use of. We shall have to wait and see. But I'll make a little cut and we'll rejoin when the attackers are entering the MUMAKIL graveyard. So here we go, the Hashari Shadows are going to be opening up and having some streaking shots go through Cannon Fodder's army as it marches forward. And those body-piercing projectiles will be really useful at thinning out, especially stuff like the Morannon Halberdiers. And they do need to cut down on some of these attacking armies a little bit with some of the quality units that they do have at their disposal. In fact, it looks as though the Hashari Shadows are going to go after Nevin's army instead. Muhad Beast Hunters moving forward. This is where the defenders may struggle a little bit more, to be fair. WK's army, well, this portion of his army at the very least, is very exposed. While it is quite numerous, it will still be smashed to pieces by the entirety of Cannon Fodder's Mordor force. Meanwhile, a little bit of an interesting choice here from WK to try and bring his Hashari Shadows back down into this lower piece of territory. In so doing, though, he is exposing himself to the Easterling projectiles, and they need to pick up the pace a little bit here, because mounted rangers such as this are most certainly not going to be the last word in terms of survivability against archers. Morannon archers also moving forward from Cannon Fodder. There are the Oathbreakers, who are incredibly slow, of course, but there is an inevitability to the fact that the defenders will need to face them in melee at some stage. As the attackers continue to move forwards, the MUMAKIL have also moved back, so WK perhaps toying with the idea of trying to engage the attackers right from the off, but it's probably for the best that he hasn't decided to do that, especially with his infantry force up here. You could maybe try and skirmish a little bit more with the mounted rangers if that's how you want to do things. But with all of these Muhads, definitely better to bring them back into a more defensive position, I feel. Speaking of which, all of these units over here that were in this little bit of the canyon down here are going to pull back as well, so they're going to try and get into a more defensive shape in the heart of the MUMAKIL graveyard, which again is the right move because the attackers will have access to some high pieces of terrain, so it really doesn't make sense for them to sit right in the middle of these very deep crevices. You really would not want to be losing too much of their manpower to attacking archers, given the situation is what it is. Muhad Warriors, a single unit of Muhad Warriors, all that stands between the attackers and advancing further into the canyons. Willing to throw one unit of infantry under the bus, but other than that, it does look as though things have slowed a little bit. Toying with the idea of coming forward are Rhun. You can see that this army as well over here from Tundra's Fox is also completely free to move over and reinforce their allies. I don't really think the attackers can bust their way into the heart of the graveyard quick enough to the point where it will matter. Like, Tundra's Fox should be able to make it there. There are still numerous ways that the attackers can take to move forward. There are some poison arrows, so some Serpent's Fangs are already in place. They're not going to be able to rout any of these units by any means, but Morannon Halberds, Eastron Guard, Eastron Clansmen, all of these units, pretty good targets, I would say, for even a lower damage unit of archers like the Serpent's Fangs. Much more about their defensive attributes and that morale debuff. But against Halberdiers and the like, you're still going to have a good amount of success. Muhad Warriors pulling back just a touch. More arrows coming forward. Muhad Berserkers getting ready to join the front line as well. That little bit of extra AP will certainly not go amiss. It will certainly be the sort of thing which causes the Morannon infantry no end of grief. The Haradrim are going to try and get into position. Their line was maybe a little bit messy as that was happening, but still they are quite a savage attacking force, the Muhads. The Berserkers most certainly. In come the MUMAKIL. Now this is maybe a little bit gung-ho, given the fact that the Halberdiers are in close proximity, and they are the sort of thing that the MUMAKIL will die pretty quickly to. The Halberds are getting shown the business end of those arrows. Some of them are making it sweat their way through, however. Morannon infantry on the way. They're going to need to send forward another unit of infantry, I think, Harad, to keep this defensive position locked down. Fire arrows being spewed forth by the Easterlings as well. The MUMAKIL are moving backwards. Hashari Shadows are here, firing point blank now into the area where the line has been breached a little bit, but this unit of Muhad Berserkers should be enough to bring this back under control. Only a few Morannon Orcs have managed to get through here. And with a charge from armor-piercing infantry, that should be enough. Some Muhad Beast Tamers on the front line certainly wouldn't go amiss either. You can see the clear projectiles of the Rangers, so a lot of things happening all at once here. The attackers will get through here eventually, it's just how costly it's going to be for them. We shall have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Olag High charging forward, the superior speed of the Trolls. Southron Raiders are moving back, they're already winded. I mean, the Trolls will eventually be able to catch up to some of these infantry units as they try to run away. A lot of these units are going to be tired as well by the time they do so, so that could have a bit of an impact actually. The fatigue of the Haradrim units, there's no need for the attackers to be quite in such a rush. There's also the fact that the Umbar forces are going to be marching their way down here as well, so it is a bit of a race against time for WK's army at the very least, even if the army in the north is a little bit safer. Meanwhile, back come the MUMAKIL once again. They're going to try and clatter through these units. They could get into all of those skirmishers in behind, and one of them has in fact at that, but there's a lot of anti-cavalry back here. There's also crossbows which could be shooting in to the majestic beasts. They also are going through their own lines as they do this, which could leave gaps, but you can see over here Moran on Halberd's defeat seems certain. You can tell it's a messy engagement when the Beastmasters over here are getting close to being in sustained melee with Halberdiers, but certainly the Haradrim have held up really quite nicely so far. A lot of the infantry that the attackers have committed forward has either routed or been killed. Only basic units so far, and there is the fact as well that the attackers have got their own skirmish support in place. The Narim using their flaming shots. But it's going to be stuff like the crossbows that I would be especially worried about. Blackguard of Barad-dûr loitering with intent as well. As soon as they see this line start to flag a little bit, the Blackguard could be deployed to push all of the Muhards out of the way. So far, so good for the lightly armoured tribesmen of Far Harad. And indeed, we are going to see over here WK is going to be able to make it. Wojciech has set up a nice defensive line to cover his retreat. And there's also the Southron Raiders which can continue to shoot down that corridor as well into either Umbar or up the hill at Mordor. No danger of Tundra's Fox's army over here being left behind. And so far, still just the one position, but having basically ceded this high ground to the attackers already, this gives them the ideal opportunity to utilise this for their own nefarious purposes. Moran on Archers and Orc Javelins trying to get up into position. And this is perfect. Oof, and there's a screech. You can tell it's a custom scenario when you hear that. But with all of these arrows now coming into the rear of all of these very lightly armoured Muhards, it's going to spell disaster for this Harad front line. It's gone quite well for them so far, but Cannon Fodder doing exactly the right thing by offering a little bit of range support to his allies down here on the low ground. It will definitely facilitate their advance to be much faster going through this area. The Hashari Shadows taking a lot of damage. That's the cost of having them so close to the front line and doing the damage they've done. The fact that the attackers have also been in range of them. Arrows coming down from on high. The War Beasts are going to have to retreat now. Forward come more Muhards, which is kind of interesting. They're going to commit more to this fight, even with the Orcs up on the cliff firing down into them. Minas Morgul's Chosen coming forward. There's a little bit of AP on the front line, but not enough, and not of sufficient quality to really bother the heavy Mordor spears too much. See there, Muhad Berserkers taking a lot of range fire, and at this point things are starting to turn a little bit, I would say, for Harad, and the attackers are starting to impress themselves upon the battle with their skirmishers a little bit more. Plenty of arrows still coming forth from over here, those Serpent's Fangs. The MUMAKIL may still be firing as well. The ranged attack of the MUMAKIL is perhaps a bit more of a secondary concern for most people, but it does still exist. Muhad Warriors getting into melee with the Clansmen. We would actually back the Muhad Warriors in that fight if it was pure melee, one-on-one, but there's so many arrows being spewed forth that even their wicker shields are not going to make up for the fact that they wear next to no armour. Meanwhile, there's a lot of skirmishers up on this hill, including javelins. I mean, the javelins would actually be pretty well positioned to try and bring the MUMAKIL down at this point. And indeed one of them has fallen, all the MUMAKIL are bloodied up. It's surprising actually only one has fallen just now to the javelins, given how involved in the melee struggle the MUMAKIL have already been. So they are micro-intensive, but they've done a good job there. He really needs to move them out of the way now, WK. Moran on Archers continuing to fire. Muhad warriors breaking Serpent's Fangs, thinking about committing themselves to melee. And there's trollmen nearby as well. They're continuing to send units forward, which would appear to be quite a poor idea, given the lay of the land on the front here. Defeat seems certain at this point for the Muhads. In comes some Eastron warriors and some Moran halberdiers to try and shore things up for the attackers, ensure their victory to a certain extent. Another break, 30, well it was 36 Muhad berserkers, which rapidly started to tumble. Beast Tamers, in come the MUMAKIL. I think what they're going to try and do here is just make the attackers' assault a little bit slower. They can either try and get reinforcements in, or they can try and pull back to better ground to try and defend. I mean, the MUMAKIL did a pretty good job there, you have to say, of blocking that advance. The Serpent's Fangs are going to try and leave this area as well. Probably about time that the Harad left this defensive ground, to be fair. It served them pretty well initially, but that rapidly turned against them. What's going on over here? Again, another bit of higher ground. There's Corsair fences up here. South-Run Raiders perhaps going to move forward to try and skirmish with them a bit. But yeah, I mean, Corsair infantry, their ammunition is not as important, so just keeping those horse archers at arm's length, making sure that you don't lose any Corsair fences unnecessarily for the later game is definitely the right thing to do here from Langham, especially given the amount of archers he has at his disposal. It's absolutely fine to use the ammunition on your most basic unit for these purposes. South-Run Raiders as well, not many of them dying, but just letting Tundra's Fox know that he can't just waltz up to the fences and start shooting at them without any form of reprisal. Still a defensive position over here. The terrain being what it is actually quite difficult for the defenders to make up their mind on where to actually defend. You can see over here the Tundra's Fox, his army is fresh because he's been able to simply march his army into position rather than WK who had to run his forces. Well, back over here where the action has been happening so far, Cannon Fodder sees that his work here is done, and he is going to move his skirmishers back over to support his army in their push through the canyon. And there are still fights going on. I mean, there's some Beast Tamers which presumably return from routing, but they're going to rout again as they are completely outnumbered by the Eastron Guard. Charge. Perhaps the Hashari Shadows are here. The War Beast of Harad can absolutely crunch these Eastron clansmen if they so choose. And I think that is going to be the idea. Indeed, they get up to charge speed, and this is going to be pretty painful. They managed to be fair, some of the unit managed to slip the net there, but still at least 20 clansmen fell by the wayside. Need to be careful about being in sustained melee with the Eastron Guard though. The anti-cavalry is not what you need. Look at all those arrows heading toward the Hashari Shadows though. Dropping like flies again. So many arrows in the dirt near them. Only 4 remain at this point. It's hard to tell whether or not they were actually effective in this battle or not. We'll see in the splash screen at the end whether WK's Shadows managed to pick up the sufficient number of kills for them to have been worth using here in the early game. But you can see here just from the number of attackers there still are that they'll be feeling pretty good about their chances. They've taken losses, but certainly not terminal ones. These are only 2 armies, remember. The other 2 are going to be advancing through different locales. Let's have a look. Are they going to get in behind here? Try and use this terrain as a blocker. Probably is the wise move. Trying to defend here opens you up to attack from both sides of these 2 bits of high ground, which the attackers will be able to gain without any sort of real struggle. Tundra's Fox has got some of his army over there, so trying to set up a bit of a kill zone in here. I think that's a pretty decent idea. Yeah, I think this is probably for the best. This may be where the battle is actually won and lost after the initial engagement in the main entryway to the canyon. The Black Serpent's thinking about coming out. Very good. A cycle charging in and out, very difficult to pin down, very slippery, very fast. Well, continuing to shoot uphill. This might be where Harad's lower skirmish focus compared to the attackers might start to hurt them a little bit. Especially given the reliance on Muhad and Southron units that they have to put up with on this occasion. More javelins. I mean, they're in a pretty nasty position. WK's Hashari Shadows have been salvaged, but only 4 of them. That can still make a difference over a longer period of time. Forward come the Beast Masters as well. Yet more camels. Already seen them have a part to play in this battle going through the MUMAKIL. That's how you know that they're different to the real MUMAKIL, because you can actually pass through their corpses, as opposed to the actual unit, which does actually get in the way. We've got to be careful here. The Beastmaster's Eclipse with a very bold move, and the Eastron Guard are going to block them, and that's bad news for the camels. They don't want to be in melee against the glaive infantry here. They do have those armor-piercing clubs in melee, but cavalry really rarely wants to be in sustained melee with healthier infantry like this anyway. Miranon archers doing their thing. Orc javelins moving forward to try and pepper down that front line. There's also the Scion Rhun, which are going to be blocking the way now as well, so I'm not entirely sure what's happening here. I mean, they're given a bit of an opportunity for the War Beasts and the Black Serpents to charge in here as well. What were they charging at? They've killed a lot of Eastron warriors, I suppose. The Trolls were in there. It's already getting pretty chaotic. The War Beasts. They're going to go after the Black Guard of Barad-dûr. That's a pretty good target, actually, because killing off a high number of them will drastically reduce their effectiveness at doing what they do best, which is pushing through defensive lines. Several of them fall. There are also the Oathbreakers. You need to be really careful about getting into melee with those Olag High there. A lot of camels fell there, and they routed. So, was that worth it in the end? The Black Serpents do charge into the Olag High. Do any of them fall? No, it doesn't look like it. Not as effective a charge as they would have liked, I'm sure. What's going on here? Thunderous Fox charging headlong into the Loke Scion Rim. They need to get back out of there very quickly, otherwise the Scion Rim, and you can see the War Beasts collapsing under the weight of the runic spears. Again, I'm not sure what the idea behind that was, but whatever it was, it didn't end the way that the defenders would have wanted it to. Well, continuing to take pretty grueling losses at the hands of those Miranon archers. Are the Beast Tamers, not what you want to be seeing if you're a defender. Meanwhile, we may get to see the beginnings of the assault coming from Umbar and the other Mordor army. Umbar with a little bit more of their heavy infantry about them. Ardenheim Shield Guard for the time being, all quiet. It's mostly Southrons and basic units. There's a few units of dismounted Serpent Guard. Once again, the attackers are the ones here that are actually getting their foot through the door in terms of the skirmishing first, which again doesn't spell good things for the Haradrim. They're not the best at this sort of thing when things are going well. When they're being bullied at long range like this, with their light armour, much less of a focus around archers in general, it can spell disaster for them, especially against a faction like Umbar, who, for them, that's pretty much their bread and butter, along with robust heavy infantry pushes. Is that what they're going to do here? Umbar will be less eager on pushing forward with their infantry hyper-aggressively, purely because of the armour piercing that Harad can bring to the table. Beastmasters have returned from routing, that one has not, and they're going to rout towards the enemy in classic Medieval 2 fashion. Beast Hunters still up on the cliff. We're still not seeing any sort of ranged engagement over here, so Eclipse has been trying to hold his nerve, not get drawn into shooting at a low priority target like the Miranon archers. Instead he's going to wait with his Serpent's Fangs. Have to wait and see if that is the wise move. That's a problem though, Orc Javelins. This is where the Orc Javelins are at their best, because you can't really afford to just leave them be like that. Otherwise they will just end up getting plenty of kills. Serpent's Fangs, any Muhards they get, going to be a bonus. Such a cheap unit but so effective. This is a scenario though, remember, so it's not as if they have to pay for these armies, so the Orc Javelins being used in an effective manner. Some of these units are depleted, but not enough of them, I think, for the defenders to be comfortable at all, especially given with how this little lull in proceedings has gone. Both sides have been just nudging one another, but the attackers have had the better of that nudging. That, I think, can't be in any doubt. Umbar in place. I'm still not entirely sure what it is the defenders are hoping to accomplish by allowing the attackers to do this to them. Part of the reason why it's hard to be a defender in this situation is you kind of have to respond to the attackers pressurising your skirmishers. Because if you don't, the price is that you just end up losing units for nothing. And that's exactly what's happening here with Tundra's Fox's South Run archers. If he's hoping to not get drawn into a skirmish fight with the Balakith marksman, he's got another thing coming, because Umbar have got enough archers to be able to do this for a while. And if Harad allow that to happen, they're going to be in a pretty bad place. And as if that wasn't enough, they're going to get engaged in melee as well. Cannon fodder sending forward his Moranon infantry as the South Runs start to fall by the wayside. South Run warband. And now melee engagements as well. A bit early to commit the Blackguard of Barad-dûr, but perhaps he could push through South Run pikemen and Haradrim spearmen only, but very much like on the other side. The Haradrim having a tough time of it. Poison arrows being loosed. Again, the Serpent's Fangs being tasked with pretty much the entirety of keeping this force at bay. Muhad Beast Hunters doing their thing. Forward comes some dismounted Serpent Guard. Is there another way through the canyon over here? Yes, there is. Which is why they are still posted up with a defensive force up on this side of things. Those Corsair fencers and infantry up on the high ground, shooting down into the Haradrim. The dismounted Serpent Guard with the armour upgrade, superior to the Moranon infantry, but both Mordor and especially Umbar have got examples of units which can overpower the crimson-clad men of the south. And we've got here more cavalry trying to be pushed forward. Here go the Blackguard of Barad-dûr pushing through the lines, already causing a bit of chaos in the Haradrim ranks. They are going to move forward with some Beast Hunters. Blackguard of Barad-dûr, victory seems certain. Only a fool could lose this battle. Is that correct? Defeat is a distinct possibility. South from Warband moving forward, so they are trying to shore up this line, but I don't know. I would say so far in this fight the attackers have had the better of it. More or less a third of the way through. And, well, I mean, the defenders have lost less, but they also have less to begin with, so that's not too surprising. I mean, here, Eclipse is now serious about holding on to this front line. The attackers have now moved forward around on halberds and the like, but Berserkers, Muhad Berserkers, but especially stuff like the Serpent's Fangs and the Champions of Nathrat being here means that Mordor are going to have to really pile on the pressure if they're going to get these Haradrim units dead and gone. Still those Beast Hunters up on the side of the cliff might be a good opportunity. I mean, here come the Oathbreakers. The biggest showstopper unit that the attackers have at their disposal, and they're heading towards this Harad front line. Using stuff like the javelins on them is probably the way that they're going to have to play this. They are ready. Again, the MUMAKIL come back, still alive. Given how active a part in this battle they've played, that is impressive, but this may very well be the end for them now. Especially if they get caught in amongst the Oathbreakers. The Sauron's Will coming in. MUMAKIL continuing to charge back and forth. Also going through their own lines doing this, but look at all of that routing. All of the lower end units, including actually some of the non-lower end units, the Minas Morgul's Chosen routing. 80 of them routing. So the MUMAKIL, probably the best we've seen the MUMAKIL perform in a long time this battle. Which the defenders need, given how certain other parts of the battle have gone. Oathbreaker's still very healthy though, which will certainly worry the Haradrim to no end. Meanwhile, Harad also pushing out, actually going on to the offensive now, which is bold. Feeling confident now, Trollmen of Harad. Perhaps they see the opportunity to try and finish off this Mordor and Runic army with a full push. All of the Muhads joining the front line as well. That is a huge Harad engagement, that. And the Runic units are not going to be enough. And there's also Black Serpents in behind the lines. The Screech from Mordor goes up. They're infighting, some of them anyway. That only lasted temporarily. A temporary reprieve on this front line. Those Muhads are also taking a ton of damage. Don't want to zoom in too much on that engagement because it's so demanding given how hyper aggressive the Haradrim are being. Well, well, well. Narim are there. But that is such a dense concentration of Muhards that I'm not sure Rhun are going to be able to hold that line. They might need help actually from the likes of Umbar. If Lango sees what's going on, he will have to turn around because otherwise it will become his problem very quickly. What are the Haradrim going to do over here? They can probably only sit in place, to be fair, because trying to be aggressive over here would just result in the front lines getting bulkier. Round on infantry here. It's been a while since we've had a battle that lags in this manner, like the scenarios of old. Forward go the Olag High. Arrows raining down from both sides at this point. We had Beast Hunters rolling into place. Get away from that engagement, shall we? What's going on up here? We had Beast Hunters just waiting in the wings there. You can see in the distance there several fire arrows hitting the Harad front line, but a lot of those units on the front line for Rhun and Mordor starting to break and fight to the death. Good signs for the Haradrim, and all of a sudden the position of Rhun and Mordor over on this side of the battlefield looking a little bit less assured. The MUMAKIL have fallen though. There's one Olag High in amongst all of those Muhards. Surely he's going to be brought down. His brother's trying to come and pull him out of the fire. Those Oathbreakers though, only 3 of them have fallen, but they're also going to be largely left on their own at some point in this battle. There's only Moran on Archers and Sauron's Will and the Olag High around them, but the Olag High will probably push their way into the Muhards and get themselves killed, as is often the way. Serpent's Fangs waiting. The Runic Arrows continuing to try and do their grisly work. The Haradrim with some success over here, you have to say. And now they're going to pull back. Perhaps seeing that they've already... I don't know. Was that worth it in the end if they're going to pull back anyway? Umbar not interested in coming to the aid of their allies over here. Kamal's Shadow Guard pushing forward, trying to block the advance of all of these Trollmen and Muhards. Will that be successful? It's turned into a very chaotic battle, which usually favours the attackers, but in a 4v4 that's less obvious. I'd still say, based on their numbers, chaos is more like what they want, especially with all the ripe opportunities for shooting in to the more vulnerable Harad units, as they're doing now. Harad are dawdling a little bit, and the longer that they dawdle, the more that that's going to give Rhun the chance to shoot more of their arrows into these Harad units. Surely these Moran halberds aren't going to last too long under this kind of pressure. Fire arrows continue to rain down. Continuing to push forward, but not with everything they have. It's just Eclipse's army that seems to be doing this. If they were going forward with everything, you could argue that if they went forward with all of this, it opens them up to an attack from the rear, and that would be it for them. But to be honest, with the choices they've already made, if they end up losing that fight on the front line anyway, and Eclipse ends up dying for not a great deal, I think they'll go on to lose the battle anyway, so you may as well throw caution to the wind and be aggressive. Meanwhile, the slow push continues over here from Umbar and Mordor, continuing to force Harad backwards slowly. The combination of Mordor's numbers and the more quality heavy infantry from Umbar definitely having their impact. Belagar Archers trying to get into a good position to shoot. There's not much left on this front line for the Haradrim either, indeed they're going to have to pull back. The dam is going to burst as Umbar and Mordor will be able to push through. Arrow fire also following those Southron archers as they try to dive for cover. Oh, there goes the Mordor general that was in the Oathbreakers. It's an impressive thing. Beast Tamers, they do need to set up another front line at this point now as well. Tundra's Fox and Boychek, and they've been caught a little bit flat-footed because they're going to need to send over more units to achieve that. I mean, they're definitely in survival mode. They're having to hope, really, that the hyper-aggression of their allies over on the other side is going to pay dividends. I see a MUMAKIL in the far distance over there, presumably running amok at this point in the battle. Indeed. I saw the exclamation mark for a split second there. Come on, Shadow Guard. Beast Hunter's defeat seems certain, pushing a little bit too far perhaps, but with the support of the Serpent's Fangs that may turn itself around. I mean, at this point, if Rhun can do enough damage to this Harad force, he's going to give his allies the best possible chance of winning this fight, so that's how he now needs to be looking at it, Meva. Temple Guard in the background as well from Froggy. What's going on up here anyway? Still, we have... Well, the Uric captains have been committed forward, as have the Sauron's Will, who are still here. Most of the units on this front line now are basic Muhard, so over time, this Mordor force should probably be enough to bring this Harad front line down as well. Not sure what these guys are doing. The Beast Hunter's trying to get really in and amongst the Oathbreakers. I mean, surely that isn't going to end well for them. You'd think. While here in the far north, Lango moving forwards. There is another front line that has been formed. It's a little bit hodgepodge if you ask me, but I don't know, I'd still back the attackers in this battle, just based on how things have been going. It might be that the defenders have managed to marshal enough strength for the late game that that isn't true. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, our crossmen trying to get into place, that's another problem. Umbar with having such a skirmish-focused army, they're not going to run out of ammunition anytime soon, so the tactics by Harad earlier on to just try and weather that storm, really not sure that was the right idea at all. Muhard warriors waiting to reinforce the front lines, Serpent's Fangs who have their weapons drawn, so they'll be looking to get into melee. More Muhards as well. Unshielded ones though, so they are wisely trying to take cover behind the hill, and most of these arrows are missing them at the very least, so they can't really hope for too much more than that. Another unit of Muhard Berserkers making their way over, but are these basic Muhard units going to be enough to withstand the pressure coming their way? Southron Raiders. Swords out. They're still trying to bring Rhun down, but even if they succeed at this point, you'd have to question whether or not the cost has been worth it. Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen firing their payload into the champions of Nathrat, who do charge into the rear of all of these golden boys, and they will start to go to work, but for how long? Those throwing daggers going to prove to be a real problem. Beast Hunters and Serpent's Fangs trying to do their thing against the Halberds, but not able to rout them quickly enough. Over here we do have some Beast Hunters. The Eclipse has again been so aggressive in this fight, but I appreciate it, I approve, but it hasn't worked in several instances. Bad news for him and his allies as a whole, because that hyper-aggression was a big part of what they were basing their defence around. Demons of the Desert in melee, I do wonder if they've used up their ammunition. If they haven't, and the Oathbreakers are the target to use it on, probably one of the few units that the Oathbreakers would look at and actually be a little bit worried about the damage they can do. A lot of those Serpent's Fangs arrows hitting the dirt right in front of them. Some more of them over there. Eastron crossbows. Very difficult to tell how well the runic crossbows have been doing in and amongst all of this mess. Much harder to see their projectiles than the Nar Rim's flaming arrows. You'd have to assume that they've done something at least to the Harad line. Southron Raiders being anchored by the Gamp Rim presumably is really helping the cause of the Easterlings here. Beast Tamers, more of them are heading forward. I mean, Harad, gluttons for punishment. They are willing to send what reinforcements they can into these meat grinders. Speaking of which, Muhard warriors being committed to this front line against what is looking like more and more of an Umbar-based push over here. Javelins coming in to try and do some damage as Umbar try and flood forward. Interesting that pikemen are being the ones to flood forward. It's just what's nearest. So Lango just trying to get some units in through the gap to expose this Harad line, and then presumably another unit of infantry will follow through. It's been costly for all involved. Umbar. The other front line over here, Moran on infantry, but there's also Naru sentinels. So difficult to kill them off unless you can really get up close and personal. I mean, you like the Trollman is capable of doing so, but Wojciech asking an awful lot of his Trollmen here, trying to get in and amongst all of the Black Númenórean infantry, but all the while there are the Corsair Blackguards, there's the Halberdiers as well, getting... It's going to be too much here ultimately for the Trollmen to be able to do this all on their lonesome. More arrows, the Southron archers trying to do their best here to do their thing, but you're seeing routing from the Southron warband. The entry-level Harad units not really up to the task of taking on an attack that's this robust. And the heart of the graveyard here could be exposed. Beast Hunters are on their way across. One Olag High remains, continuing to chase them down. Corsair infantry have pushed their way through this front line. Halberdiers shuffling around. Belagair archers also doing their thing. Meanwhile, teams of the desert presumably still have ammunition if they're that far away. Are they going to try and expose the Oathbreakers a little bit more and then use their ammo on them? Those must be the armor-piercing arrows of the Temple Guard. Just trying to shoot their way through that part of the line as well. And over here, Beast Tamers, Southron Raiders. It does look as though Harad are going to be victorious over here against Rhun. It's been costly, but it is a victory that they desperately needed if they were going to have a chance at victory in this fight. They may then wish to carry on and try and finish off what's left of Cannon Fodder and Froggy's armies that are over here, and that would be a substantial victory for Harad, because I do believe Umbar and Mordor on the other side will be winning. And that is the Runic General. He was in here somewhere, and phalanx to phalanx, a neater engagement than perhaps we're used to between the Haradrim and the Easterlings here. Just a carpet of dead bodies underneath both Southrons and Easterlings. Yeah, now Trollman, champions of Nathrat. Still some Sapphire Bladesmen over here, which is kind of interesting, but yeah, you'd imagine this is where Mevon's army is going to start to completely fall apart and rout. Sapphire Bladesmen firing at point blank. Oathbreaker's still back over there. And over here, Harad are going to try to consolidate. Yeah, they're pulling off the front lines with Umbar and Mordor. Can they save all of these units? They better hope so. This unit of Southron archers trying to do what damage they can as the consolidation begins. Where are they going to move to though? Perhaps over there? This defensive position up here? Probably the best that they can muster. It's closer to the units that were aggressive against Rhun. They can post up on high ground. For once, the attackers won't be able to take advantage of the terrain to use their own skirmishes against them, depending on how much ammunition they have left at this stage. Oathbreakers, 205 of them remain. So still under 50 of them have perished. That will change with the Demons of the Desert shooting at them like that. Another one, or two I should say, two whole Oathbreakers have fallen. Yeah, these are pretty much as good a shot as they could hope for. In melee with the Serpent's Fangs as well. Black Serpent, still healthy actually. That could be a significant unit in the late game if the attackers don't have any cavalry or enough anti-cavalry or stuff like crossbows to keep them at bay. Could be a real problem maker for them. Meanwhile, Temple Guard, who have clearly been charged into oblivion, actually something we didn't see. There were only 6 of them, now there's only 2. Using his Black Serpent as well, just using his mounted units well in general actually, all of the defenders. Southron Raiders chasing down the Narim, hoping to break them. That could actually be the last of Mevon's army. They are wavering. Surely they'll break now. Yeah, there they go. Harad pulling back with their infantry. Mission accomplished, I suppose, over here. Whether this was worthwhile or not, we'll have to judge based on whether or not Harad win this battle or not. Which, I don't know. has all the makings of a pretty close game actually going into the late game here. Balkoth, Sapphire Blazeman, they are the last thing that Rhun surely have available to them. Banner Carrier defeated the one Sapphire Blazeman running away. The Oathbreakers moving forward, 194 of them remain. Demons of the Desert, are they going to allow themselves to get caught in melee? Could retreat back down there. Umbar and Mordor getting ready to set up for an assault on the hill. Harad, their final stand has been set, and by the time they get all set up there, guess what? It'll probably be the final 10,000 frames. Still Oathbreakers over here. Muhad Warriors routing. Surely a fear-causing unit, the Oathbreakers. I haven't actually looked at their stats in a long time, but causes fear is something which I imagine was never taken away from them. Southron Raiders going to move backwards. The cavalry still have a part to play. Even something like the Southron Raiders could be decisive in the late game. And the Demons of the Desert are going to run away, and the Oathbreakers, being extremely slow, are not going to be able to catch them, but the Oathbreakers will still be very useful when it comes to trying to take this hill. Well, Beast Hunters, Trollmen of Harad, Orc Javelins, who are in range, attracting the attention of these, in many cases, bloodied Southron archers. We can safely go up to ×2 speed here, actually, while the attackers trudge their way into position. Have a look at the percentage of kills, and yeah, at this point Harad are 1 percentage point behind. The attacking army started larger anyway. Southern Raiders loitering around there, so the attackers do still have the edge going into this, going into the final stages. There goes a Harad general, left behind to be overrun by the Oathbreakers. A sad fate indeed. Raiders waiting. What happened to those black serpents? Are they waiting around here anywhere? Yeah, Demons of the Desert are going to actually manage to get back before being cut off. This is going to be it though. ×6 speed is actually maybe a little bit more apropos in this situation. A player admits defeat. Surely the Runic player, possibly one of the Harad players as well. Don't know who's actually here. WK, Eclipse, Wojciech, and Tundra's Fox still has units, so yeah. It'll be Rhun. Mevon, the first army to fall, but given the fact that he attracted a disproportionate amount of the Haradrim attention, really, it's not too surprising. And he, his sacrifice may yet mean that the attackers go on to win this battle. Are we going to see the openings of the engagement here? Possibly. Maybe. It doesn't look like it. Not yet. Balakath Marksman's still not in range. So we're still going to have to fast forward to a certain extent. One of these MUMAKIL must have died recently, otherwise they'd just be naught but bones. Aha. Now then, Southron archers firing into the Corsair Crossmen, trying to move forward. Something like this that still has ammunition will be really, really dangerous for the Haradrim, but they're also really easy to kill off with even basic archers, so it's not too surprising to see that this is going to be the case. Belagair archers, Balakath marksmen. With the Haradrim bottled up like this, you'd have to say that Umbar, with, if they still have a decent amount of arrows left to them, which they should based on their initial compositions, Harad could be in all sorts of trouble here. They don't really have too much of a choice. This was really the only path left open to them. But I do think if Umbar plays their cards right, with the Mordor support they have, Harad should be wiped clean off this hillside. Well, Black Serpents, this is where the Black Serpents are. They are cycle charging the Oathbreakers and having success. I mean, the Oathbreakers here can't do a whole lot because they're so slow they can't get out of the way. The Black Serpents are so quick they can easily escape the Oathbreakers before they start to attack. It's weird that the Oathbreakers are bloodied, but such is the way of things. What's going on here? Are we going there with the Narrow Iron Roar Guard? Tundra's Fox needs to keep cycle charging, in my opinion. Get rid of those Oathbreakers. The last thing you need is them also arriving on the scene. Meanwhile, Muhard Beast Hunters being engaged, javelin on javelin violence. The Beast Hunters, though, certainly the better unit in melee, but with arrow support, the Orc Javelins, who are one of the worst melee combatants in the game, may yet have their victory. Getting a little bit of support, but I mean, if you just look at this, like Southron Archers, Warband, still very heavily based on Muhards. There's a few Trollmen left alive, but a lot of them are wounded based on their exertions earlier on. Some Serpent's Fangs, a full unit of Champions of Nathrat, that's something, and a unit of Demons of the Desert. I mean, it's not all bad, but a large part of this defense is still just very, very basic units. Range support coming in for both sides now, although Harad probably wishing they didn't have to use what's left of their limited ammunition supply on Orc Javelins, whose only contribution is going to be in melee now, but perhaps they didn't realise this was a way up onto the hill and now they need to run some damage control. It would not be too surprising. Now an Iron Royal Guard, there are the Oathbreakers, slowly making their way around. Lost the Black Serpents again, another player admits defeat. Is that cannon fodder? Possibly it is. That may well have been his last unit. No, surely it's not. He had the Oathbreakers, did he not? Yeah, it's not cannon fodder. He's still alive. So Lango is still here. Where's the other Mordor army again? Am I going absolutely insane? I've completely forgotten. Oh well. Should be Eclipse as well? No, surely, yeah, Eclipse has still got units over here. So yes, it was the Mordor army that was marching with Umbar, interestingly enough. Meanwhile, Rhun on infantrymen up against a single champion of Nathrat, a duel for the ages. Surely the champion of Nathrat's going to win this fight. He's doing quite well here to parry these blows, the banner carrier. And he routs. He suddenly realises who he is. He's not actually one of the elite units. He's actually just a morale on infantryman with a banner. And he's going up against the best infantry unit that Harad can muster. Balagai Archers now moving in, trying to take the slow and steady approach here to wearing Harad down. Is that entirely necessary given the edge that they've already built up in this fight? I'm not sure. Back there's the Berserkers, a bit of armor piercing. Certainly won't go amiss against what the Umbar units still have left to give. Balakith marksmen have pulled out their swords. Unsurprisingly, Mordor panicking. Plenty of Alcarondas Legion, Corsair Blackguards, Pikemen, including Naran Aru Sentinels, who are attracting the attention of some archers by the looks of things, but Naran Aru Sentinels are a rare beast in terms of Pikemen. Not only do they have that really good armour, but they are shielded, so very unlikely to take much damage from a unit of depleted Southron archers, to be honest, especially seeing as most of those arrows appear to be missing. You hate to see it from a defending perspective. Trollman seeing that they need to leave. In come the Moranon archers trying to pin them in place. I mean, Balagai archers and Moranon archers have no business fighting Trollman, but if they can pin them out of place and then stronger units come forwards, I mean, the Alcarondas Legion still won't really want to go up against the Trollmen, but at that point it starts to become a matter of you're just being overrun with numbers. And those units have been coaxed into attacking the front line, falling upon the Haradrim phalanx. The Trollmen take their place on the front line. Still this one unit of Beast Hunters which is having to hold down the flank all on their lonesome. Balakith. Temple Executioners is a significant unit to still have left, as well as Uruk Captains. I just think in terms of quality and numbers, the attackers have got too much. The only thing that might change that is whether or not these Demons of the Desert can really lay down some really good volleys, but even then, 94 Oathbreakers. I don't know if that hyper-aggressive counter-attack from Harad earlier on, while it has finished off Rhun, I'm not sure whether in the long run it will prove to be worthwhile. Poor Beast Hunters as well, being hung out to dry a little bit. There's a few Minas Morgul chosen on the front line, as well as all of these Balagai archers. The Alcarondas Legion will be filtering their way to the front as well, which will be bad news for them. The Southron archers trying to do what they can to kill off some of these unit models as well. with more and more of an Umbar presence on the front line. Even what Mordor have left is their bulkier units. A few sporadic and depleted archer volleys like that are not going to be the difference maker in this fight. You have to say as well, we're still not seeing a huge push here from the attackers, which should come at some point. Belagire archers are shaken. They could, pulling off the front line like that while taking arrow fire could be enough to rout them. Small victories for the defenders. Still a lot of routing units down there. Trollmen are now over here as well, so that will make a big difference. Even the Alcarondas Legion won't like being in melee with them, but again, we're talking about depleted units from both the attackers and the defenders here. So really this is just the appetizer before the main course. And I have to say, just based on the units they have left, I would be shocked if when the attackers came forward with all their might, all of these Muhards and Southrons didn't fold pretty quickly. Perhaps I'm wrong, but again, it's also in a meta sense, just looking at how many frames are left. When the attack gets underway, the victor will be determined pretty quickly, and I don't see a way in which Harad can win this battle quickly. That would be my guess. Victory is almost a certainty. The Trollmen's armour piercing, playing its part. There's still that little bit of range support coming in as well, although any friendly fire might actually prove to be more trouble than it's worth. Southrons. The Serpent's Fangs are still hiding. I don't know if they still have ammunition, but they're not exactly showstoppers for damage anyway, and that's what is required at this point for the Haradrim. Okay, let's go back up to ×2 speed. It's getting a little bit painful now from an attacking perspective. Like, you've messed around on this flank for long enough at this point. You are the attackers, the onus is on you to move forward. Harad have already been more aggressive than you could have hoped for in this battle, so now you need to grab a hold of your courage and move into their defensive position. At least do them that courtesy. You're probably going to end up winning this fight anyway, so at least let Harad's defensive position test itself against the full might of your army. Though the full might of your army is not going to consist of a single unit of Balakith marksmen, who will charge into the front line now, but the Muhards will remain. Oof. Showered with throwing daggers in the Corsair fences, and once again the Haradrim are going to have to come forwards. Well, the piercing damage not going to be the most useful thing against the fences, and those twin rapiers are going to be ideal against the Muhards in melee. Their almost fish scale armour. Forward come the Naru Sentinels, which as far as pike units go will be far superior to the Beast Tamers. It's not going to end well for Harad here. It's all going to end in tears. Demons of the Desert are pretty much their last hope, and even then, even if they can do crippling damage, I don't see how. Harad don't take significant casualties, and then when the Oathbreakers finally arrive, it's going to be game over. But they can try and bring down as many Orcs and Black Numenorians as they possibly can. Alcarondas Legion now being backed up by Moran and Halberdiers. Serpent's Fangs headed towards the front line to try and back all of these Muhards up. Muhard Berserkers with their big bone clubs going to try and crack some skulls. Serpent's Fangs getting in behind enemy lines. Balagire archers are going to go after the crossbows to prevent too much of their front line from being killed from afar, and instead force the attackers to do their own dirty work in melee. Champions of Nafra. They were completely healthy, but they've taken damage back here. Plenty of them dying off. I would assume that's from a combination of javelins, but especially the crossbow bolts, and yeah, there are the javelins. Look, Orc Javelin showering the Champions of Nafra as they move forwards. And as if that wasn't enough, there's also, yeah, look at that, look, they're absolutely rinsing the Harad front line with javelins and the like now. The Demons of the Desert don't have any ammunition left, so there's our answer there. They are going to get into melee and presumably do a decent amount of damage before they fall by the wayside. In comes some more Southrons. So it's been a bold effort from Harad in this battle, but the terrain was difficult. Judging where to put their defences was certainly difficult, and I don't think they made the right call early on. All of their main calls actually you could probably poke holes in. So the fact that they've fought as well as they have is commendable. Temple Executioners on their way to the front line now. No rest for the weary. Seeing where the Demons of the Desert are, the Temple Executioners will be sent in to stabilise that situation and try and bring them down. An armour upgrade won't help too much against Trollmen class units, but it makes them look impressive. That's the old unit model, I believe, for the Castellans of Dol Guldur in one old sub-mod for Reforged. It does have more of a look of a Black Numenorian thing though, so I think it makes more sense that the Temple Executioners are it. You have Berserkers routing. That's going to be another problem with the front line being so heavily based on the tribals of Harad. The morale is going to fall apart. Not a problem, certainly that Umbar have to deal with. Mordor in their higher tier units don't have to deal with that too much either. Iron Royal Guard getting into melee. What are the Oathbreakers? Are they still slowly making their way around here? Yeah, there they are. So slow. So slow. Kind of like the old Barrow-Wights, only better. Serpent's Fangs fighting on the hill. Not much left of the centre of this front line. It's being held together by the tattered remnants of the Champions of Nafarat, really. Southron Archers actually being engaged in melee by a few units that have found their way behind enemy lines. Corsair Blackguards. I'd prepare to taste ashes if I were you. But still, the fact they haven't fallen apart extremely quickly is good for Harad. It shows that while they do have their weaknesses in terms of their armour, their melee defence isn't the highest, they're definitely more focused around the attack they can deal in melee, not unlike Rudauer. It does go to show that... well, there goes the Umbar General. They have their own kind of resilience. Combination of numbers, but also some heavier units, and then the damage they can deal also means that they can make for a surprisingly resilient foe when they're in formation, but unfortunately for them they just had too much left to do in these latter stages. Serpent's Fangs and Trollmen actually winning up on this flank. A highly Pyrrhic victory, but a victory nonetheless. There's still this cavalry. Black Serpents, but unfortunately for them, Temple Guards still having a bit of ammunition means that they could be shot. Not unlike how crossbows can deal with cavalry. And they have taken an awful lot of damage, only 5 of them remain. They do charge in, but they weren't the saviours that they could have been. I mean, with a 25 Black Serpents actually could have been enough to throw a bit of a wrench into the works if there was nothing that could have responded to them in the way that the Temple Guard have clearly been able to. So that is worth bearing in mind. Southron Archers routing. Temple Executioners chanting. They know that victory is upon them. Quite a few Muhards left. 4 Black Serpents. Need to be careful not to linger too long around the showtells of the Serpent's Fangs. I wonder if this unit of 25 Southron Archers will be the last unit left. No, it won't. I was going to say it would be interesting if a really weak unit was the last one left, but they won't be. Not with the Temple Executioners about to make sure that they never leave this place. And they will join their beloved MUMAKIL. Yeah, there he goes. Bolder than a rooster. Bolder than a rooster, I think, encapsulates Harad in this fight, certainly in the earlier stages. And that has ultimately come back to haunt them, but it's close. It's not that much. Like, it wouldn't have taken much more for Harad, I think, to really make a good fist of winning this fight. Only 2% the difference here. That will probably stretch to 3 by the end of the battle, but that's a very close battle indeed. A Mordor general. All of the generals falling all at once. Orc javelins, the loss of their general not enough, they feel emboldened. I mean, they know that if they were to rout at this point, the Temple Executioners would find them and punish them for their trespasses. Still Demons of the Desert, 2 of them. Surrounded on all sides by Orc javelins. Being laid low. There's also those Nara and Irish Sentinels who've taken a lot of damage. Like, this is the thing, Harad have savaged the attacks as they've moved up the hill, but the result was never in doubt, but they've given a good accounting of themselves here on their last stand. Have the South Rhons. What else do we have going on back here? These Tamers are leaving. There goes another Harad general. I don't think they will. I think the Serpent's Fangs, I think they're a locked morale unit. So they will fight to the bitter end. But, as is often said, it will be a bitter end when they're being faced with a unit like upgraded Temple Executioners. It's still a good fight. And I'm always up for interesting new maps, and there's been a little bit more of a focus, I know, in the creation community on the Discord, as it were. That as soon as the announcer shuts up, I'll be able to tell you. Yes, yes. But, as I was saying, there has been a little bit more of a focus around Harad. I think WK himself has been trying to make a proper map for the Haradrim capital, which will be very interesting when it's done. Froggy has obviously made a couple of Harad-based scenarios, so the South Rhons have been getting a bit of love, which is cool. They are one of those groups in Middle-earth that less is known of, so there can be a little bit more creative liberty taken with them.
Life is made of 2 days, one which is sweet, and the other is bitter. Today, we must eat the bitter.
Yes, well, actually it ended sooner than I thought it would. Regardless of that, Akoril the Blind Sorcerer. That's a pretty interesting name. But yeah, good fight, I would say, from everyone involved. There wasn't really anything I could say that was wrong about this fight. It was really interesting to see Harad be so aggressive. It may not have been the best idea in the end. Harad, especially with how fragile some of their units can be. If it starts to go a little bit wrong, if you start to be a little bit exposed to archers, the losses you can take mean that that can be a problem for you. But on the other side of that coin, Harad have also got the damage to really back that sort of push up. So it could have worked. It could have worked. But in the end, I just think the initial defense was going quite well, but then they decided to commit a few too many units to a situation where cannon fodder was shooting them in the back with arrows and javelins. Probably shouldn't have done that. The MUMAKIL were used really well, but certain other units of cavalry like the camels weren't. Yeah, and that being really aggressive obviously did finish off Rhun, but it meant that you didn't have the defensive position to really face off against Umbar and Mordor in the north. There was a lot that could have been different. So, but you know, with all of those things that could have been different, it was still such a close fight. So, if they were to fight this again, Harad, I wonder how they would approach it. If the attackers as well, would they know that they would try and focus one of them down and be aggressive? I wonder. Let's see what did the damage for the Haradrim though. The Black Serpents doing really well, as did the Southron Raiders actually, and Southron Archers. So, as much as I was sceptical about how well the Harad skirmishers were doing in the face of all that attacking pressure, they were actually doing quite well on the down low. Warbeast of Harad did okay, but compared to the other units of cavalry, especially Southron Raiders, you'd expect them to get a few more kills by comparison. Southron Warband did okay. A little bit further down, 312 on Southron Pikemen. That's an impressive score as well. That must have happened in the north, I would assume. Dismounted Servant Guard okay. One unit of Southron Pikemen though with 0 kills. Not what you want to be seeing. Serpent's Fangs doing very nicely in this army. Champions of Nafrat perhaps committed later on. This might have been the last unit of Champions of Nafrat that were in the final stand. By that point the battle was already beyond Harad really. Muhard's doing pretty well across the board. I mean, some of them getting... The Berserkers actually were the ones that did less well. The Warriors doing their job on several occasions. Beast Hunters, Beast Tamers, the Trollmen. 2 of them getting over 200 kills each. That's definitely the sort of performance you need to be seeing. Over 200 kills on those Champions of Nafrat. 2 on Demons of the Desert, though, is pretty unacceptable. If you're going to be even if they were Oathbreaker kills, it's not worth it. Like, that could be honestly could be a massive difference maker if you consider what the attackers actually have left. 3 or 4 well-focused volleys of Demons of the Desert fire into that could be enough to turn the battle completely on its head. The fact that they only got 2 is that could be it. Honestly, that may be the biggest contributing factor given how damaging the demons can be. Trollmen of Harad did okay. Muhard Berserkers. And then finally, 481 kills in Serpent's Fangs. Probably the most effective Harad unit across all of their armies was the Serpent's Fangs, which given they were on the defense today is not too surprising. This unit of Demons of the Desert, that's much more like it with 444. That's one of the best performances of the Demons of the Desert we've seen, so perhaps you could say it levels off to a happy medium, but I'm less convinced with only 2 kills. 205, plenty of units breaking 100 in this army. 804 kills from the MUMAKIL. That is almost certainly the best performance of the MUMAKIL I've seen in this patch of the game, possibly ever actually. 804? That could be the best. I wonder if they edited the MUMAKIL for this scenario. Is that something you can do for a one-off? Edit the unit to make it a little bit more effective? Because I'm almost tempted to say that's it, but I don't want to take anything away from WK if he was able to use his MUMAKIL that well. I mean, they do have it in them, it's just you don't get to see it basically ever because of their weaknesses, but well. Maybe fighting in and amongst their fallen brethren gave them that little bit of extra impetus to do that. 804 kills from MUMAKIL, very impressive. That probably does make up for Demons of the Desert only getting 2, to be honest. That's well above and beyond what I would expect MUMAKIL to be capable of in this version of the game. But yeah, big thank you to WK for sending this battle to me, big thank you to Froggy for making this map and scenario, and a big thank you to all of the players for being a part of it. As for what's coming up next, I do have a scenario from Horton, I think, which will be the next one. Then I think we'll do a pitch battle as a bit of a palette cleanser from all of these larger scale battles. Then I will go back to doing a couple more sieges, one which is more of a standard one, and another which is another scenario from Morris. So the content will continue to flow. I think I'll probably be good actually to continue this current pace at least until mid-September, which is nice. From there, we'll have to wait and see. It really kind of depends on where they decide to send me next. But as I've said, there's likely to be only one big trip away left in this year. And based on what next year may bring, a little bit of turbulence perhaps, depending upon what happens. There's a lot of things that are in flux at this point in time. Like, I have my own ideas of where I want to be going. But we'll just have to wait and see on that. But regardless, if I do only have one more big trip away this year, that may give me the opportunity to continue to do things to this schedule and make some plans for getting some updated hardware, I think, as is the plan that I've already laid out in previous channel updates. So yeah, big thank you to everyone involved in this once again. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next.